Welcome to another episode of Fresh Blerd Air. I am your host, Black Thanos, and I am joined by the one and only Uptownbill. Welcome, welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great.
Good.
Thank you for coming through, under the, technical difficulty that we was having before we started.
It's all good. I'm in Philly this weekend because Ekbach had a Comic-Con out in the park near the zoo here in Philly. So I went to that yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So tell the people about yourself and what you do and everything.
Professional actor and cosplayer. I've always been a nerd, a geek, a comic book fan, an artist fan. And so one year I went to New York Comic-Con. My first Comic-Con I went to, I was back in Baltimore. I was like 12 years old, just because I liked it. And my parents let me go. I was at a little hotel in Baltimore. So then I went to it, and it was in January. It actually got snowed in at the Comic-Con, my very first one I went to, in the hotel. And because of the emergency snow edition came through, we actually had to spend the night in the event itself. They had these conference rooms, and I ended up sleeping in a window in the hotel until the next morning when the buses were running. But that was my first comic book, kind of adventure. But then later on, as an adult in New York, I went to New York Comic-Con, and I wanted to do a cosplay, but I felt nervous about it. So I wore my Green Lantern costume underneath a pair of sweatpants and the whole sweatsuit. And I got there, and I walked around New York Comic-Con for probably about 45 minutes until I felt comfortable enough to take off the sweatsuit and come out in my Green Lantern costume. Right. And I wore the old Green Lantern costume, and I actually wore the green mask too, because I just kind of felt a little bit nervous. And I walked out of the restroom, and people were really receiving it really well. The fact that there was a John Stewart, because at that time John Stewart was the Green Lantern that was on, Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah.
So he was the one that most of the young people knew at that point. So they saw me, and they related it to that cartoon character, and it was really well received. I was really nervous about doing it, but it was so well received that someone actually came to me and said, "Wait a minute, John Stewart doesn't wear the mask. You shouldn't have the mask on." They didn't know that the mask was kind of hiding my own fear of cosplaying. So I took the mask off, and it was so incredibly well received. I loved everything about it. And there are lots of white people who came dressed as other members of the Justice League, but of course they didn't have any black friends to invite to be John Stewart. So they saw me. They kind of embraced me as another member of the Justice League. That member that they kind of forgotten to invite.
Pretty much.
It was very interesting. And also, any people of color that were there saw me as a black superhero. We're talking about 2004, 2005. There was not a large cadre of black cosplayers at that time. And the black people that were there, and black and brown people that were there with their kids, pushed their kids towards me so their kids could take a picture with a brown superhero.
Right.
So I found out another whole dynamic. These kids were like, "Oh, you got to take a picture. You got to take a picture," because the parents felt proud there was representation, which let me know that representation is the most important thing. People seeing themselves is so important.
That's good. We all need, a lot of, when it comes to cosplay, black, representation.
Yes.
Because there's not a lot of black heroes. We have less black heroes to, imitate, because it's few and far between.
Well, because the major creators of the comic books we see are Marvel and DC, and they're not gearing it towards creating, positive black and brown role models. They're always about the white superhero or the white savior.
What's a memorable, event or something that happened that, really, changed your mind if you ever thought it was not working out for you?
Pretty much I've been one of the lucky ones that I've always only had positive experiences. Some of my other cosplayers have had negative experiences, but everything for me has always been a positive, and it's always been kind of heartwarming, a lot of the things that have happened to me. The first year that I did Black Panther, I started doing Black Panther long before there was a movie. And I did Luke Cage before there was a TV series and all this kind of stuff. So, but once the movie came out, the Black Panther movie came out, I upgraded my cosplay to match the movie version of cosplay because I was always doing the original version of Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
So I upgraded it to the movie version, and I did it, and I wore it to New York Comic Con, and a little brown boy came over to me and wanted to take a picture with me, and then he pulled me down to his level, and he says, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." He's like, "Under that costume, are you brown or are you white?" And I said, "I'm brown." And I pulled away a part of the costume just so he could see enough to see through my hands that I was a
Mm-hmm.
brown person. And he gave me a really big hug. And he was maybe about 10 years old. But it was really important to him to know that there was brown representation.
Because it's definitely not, like I said before, it's not a lot, but it's, when you see somebody, cosplaying as, a brown character is really good.
That same year, I went to Rhode Island Comic Con. I had never been before. I got invited by my friend CCH Pounder, who does the voice of like Amanda Waller, and also she's one of the voices
Oh.
in Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
The actor CCH Pounder. She invited me to come to visit her because that was her first Comic Con, and she was a little bit nervous as an actress going to a Comic Con. She was invited as guest, but she'd never been around Comic Con people, and people think of Comic Con people or nerd people as strange or unusual or fanatics, and if you've never been in that world, you don't know how you're going to be received.
Mm-hmm.
So she invited me as her guest to come to that one, and I went. And to Rhode Island Comic Con, there's not a lot of black and brown people going to events in Rhode Island. So I get there, I don't see a lot of people. But then on my second day, I saw two little boys with their families who were dressed as Black Panther. I was dressed as Black Panther, and they really wanted to take a picture with me as Black Panther.
Right.
The parents were white, and the two little boys also were white boys. They were like 9, 10 years old themselves, but they had on Black Panther costumes. And I'm sure in Rhode Island, parents knew that it was because of the movie. But again, the fact that they chose to portray this positive movie popular character was very interesting. And they really wanted to take a picture with me. And their parents came to me and asked me, could they take a picture with me? But it was great to see that it was a universal reception of the Black Panther across the board.
I'm glad it's very well when it first came out, it was well received because of I guess the history and lineage and the person who played the character.
Right. But again, that was such a big movie for people of color. But to see it also received equally on a universal level amongst everybody was wonderful. Because so many times when you come to doing black art, black movies, black songs, the mass media and Madison Avenue will tell you that, oh, it's not going to be received well, or white people won't have anything to do with it. We can't make any money off of it. It's never going to be profitable because it's black people in the leads.
I had just saw a quote, quote / scene from the Falcon and Winter Soldier,
Mm-hmm.
and it was at, I guess, the end where Sam was pretty much explaining, I'm the new Captain America. And he said we gotta do better.
Right.
And it was a great speech, and it resonated with what life is like really like, and how we need to do better and not you know try to look the other way and try to do stuff a different way, try to bring everybody in and not just
Mm-hmm.
go one-sided.
Right.
What movie projects have you done?
Well, because I've done lots of independent movies. One of the ones that can be found on like Amazon Prime is a movie called Last Love Lost. I did that a few years ago. Really enjoyed doing it. My character in that is not a he's not a good person, but I did what I had to do for the movie. Because
Mm-hmm.
the bigger picture is that the movie is about domestic violence and how that is not good.
Right.
So my character starts off by being kind of that way, but it leads to other people becoming much better. So the filmmaker really wanted to do a movie because he had experienced this in his own life. you know, kind of abusive father. And so he had me kind of portray that role. But that led him to being a much more positive, more uplifting black man. So I kind of became like that catalyst at the beginning of the movie, which leads him on to a better life. So that's why I didn't mind playing it. When it comes to doing movie roles, I'm very selective about what I'll do. Because I could work more if I wanted to play more of the stereotypical roles that the casting directors would cast a 6 foot tall, dark skinned black man as, which is going to be the gangster, the inmate, the drug dealer, the abusive husband, the angry black man. I don't want to play that because that's again, that is usually white people telling our story, and that's the way they see us. And unfortunately, that trickles down to us too. So sometimes when black people want to do movies as well, they think that it has to be a drug movie, a hood movie, a gangster movie, because that's what they see and that's what they know and that's what they think it means to be real. They don't want to think about the other realities of black people, that we're not a monolith that's just one way that's portrayed by the first 7 minutes of a newscast. That we can be doctors and lawyers and uplifting and positive portrayals of politicians or presidents and these types of roles. Those are not usually the roles that were offered. So I'm really selective about the things that I actually even submit myself for. Even if it's something like a background role. If the role says that they're looking for a crackhead, I don't submit. If it says even if it says they're looking for a doorman, I don't submit. A janitor, I don't submit. Those are janitors and doormen are most necessary and they're positive. I mean, people make money and make livings doing that as a job.
Right.
But I don't want to I don't want that to be the only thing that Hollywood allows me to do. And those jobs are fine, substantial money. There are doormen in New York that make lots of money. They're making 6 figures as a doorman to this, expensive building. But I don't want to put, because of the history of black people in America, I don't want to just be portrayed as a person that's opening the door for the rich, wealthy, entitled white people to come in and out. I don't want to be the black man that's just receiving their packages and saying, "Good morning, Mr. So-and-so. Hello, Mr. So-and-so. You have a package here, Mr. So-and-so." I want to do something other than that. Now, there are lots of wonderful black actors out there that would do that. I've just been lucky enough that I also have a more corporate job, so I don't have to rely on that to make my living.
Right.
If I had to rely on that to make my living, I would take anything and everything possible, which is what a lot of actors do. So you do see them you find black women playing prostitutes all the time and crackheads. Even people like Viola Davis will talk about all the number of prostitute roles that she was offered. But then you get someone like Whoopi Goldberg who has turned down roles to play a prostitute. Because that's what they're offering. Phyllis Yvonne Stickney, wonderful black actress. She was in Women of Brewster Play. She was in so many other things. She talked about Woody Allen came to her and wanted her to play a role in his movie. And as a comedic actress, she thought, wow, great. The fantastic Woody Allen wants me to be in his movie. Oh, I made it then. Hollywood will love me if I'm in a Woody Allen movie. Nobody knew later on that Woody Allen would become a pedophile, would be shown as a pedophile. But at that time, he was Hollywood's darling child.
Yeah.
And she took the role. She saw the role. And again, Woody Allen saw her for his movie, but he saw her as a prostitute. So she turned that role down. They went to another wonderful black actress, because there's always someone to do it. But sometimes you have to say that I can't do this because I don't want to look at myself after having done it. I don't want my family to see me as a prostitute. I don't want to see my family to see me as a drug dealer, a gangster every week. Even in the movie that I played, Last Love Lost, like I said, I played a privileged character in the beginning of the movie. But in that movie, my character, does horrible stuff and acts, and I did it, and I brought my family to the screening, but it was difficult sitting there, watching with my family while I was on screen doing horrible things.
Yes.
So, but also one of the first things I did was I played the referee in Luke Cage on Netflix. So there's an episode of Luke Cage, I think it's the second season, one of the episodes towards the end, where Luke Cage is fighting Diamondback in the street. And there's a big, and all the neighborhood of people are watching. And Luke Cage started to lose. But Luke Cage has a flashback to when he and Diamondback were the kids, about 14 years old, fighting in a ring. and how he had to fight Diamond back then as a kid, and he knocks him out. He wins that match as a child. And my character is a referee that makes that I was a referee, so I proclaim him the champion. And that's one of the things that helped Luke Cage remember that he could be a champion and finally beat Diamondback and win. And for me, that was a proud moment, because here I am playing this referee who is proclaiming the child Luke Cage, the champion.
Yes. How do
So
you
things
get,
like that. For me, it's always good to do stuff like that.
of
Just a
course.
couple of weeks ago, I was on an episode of The Blacklist. I think it's episode 219. So it's like their third from the last episode, episode of the season. Where again, I'm just there in the room, but I am a military general. Because that came up, and I said, they're like, you're interested in being a military general. I was like, yes, that'll do. Because again, it's a black man in authority and a power figure in control. And that's more the images that I want to put out, because that's what I want our kids to see, that they can do that. Not just have to be a basketball player, not just have to be a rapper, not just have to be a drug dealer or a gang member or a prison inmate. It's like I said, representation is the most important thing. And I've learned that the most. I've learned that constantly. Every time I come out in cosplay, I hear about how much representation matters.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm there, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in DC for AwesomeCon, and I dressed as Prince Akeem from Coming to America. It was so emotional. People came up and told me their personal stories of their relationship to that movie, Coming to America. One man said, he's a grown man now, he said when he was 8 years old, he had chickenpox, could not go to school, could not go to babysitter, so he stayed at his grandmother's house. While staying with his grandmother for a week, he discovered the movie Coming to America. She let him watch it, and he's a white guy with his white grandma. Then they watched Coming to America 3 days in a row. And he talked about what a special moment that was, watching how much that movie meant to him while his recovery from chickenpox, spending time with his grandmother. His grandmother is now deceased. But that movie and that character still represents a very special time in his life and a special moment between him and his grandmother. His mother was not involved, his sisters and brothers were not involved, just him and his grandmother sharing a moment watching Coming to America. And my character brought that back to him again.
It's good when you can, I guess, spiritually touch people, and
Yes.
Because they can maybe have a like that guy, he had a connection. He may have, brought back like good memories and everything. And then a lot of people say you cosplay as something that you wouldn't, somebody else wouldn't expect to see, and you make their day, and they ready to take that picture, because there's not a lot of, say you wasn't dressed up as a character, like you don't really see that character that much.
Right, because people think Comic-Con, so they think superheroes, they think Star Wars, they think, video game characters. They don't think, like a character from a movie coming to life in front of them. So they see it, they weren't expecting it, and like you said, they have a relationship to it, so they want to take that picture. And it's another thing that a lot of times I hear like young kids whose parents loved Coming to America. So now that these kids are at this convention for themselves, but they see my character Coming to America, and they want to take a picture with it to send their fathers and their mothers back home. They're like, oh, my mother would love this. My father would love this. So it's wonderful to make these kids who came there for their own interest remember the people back home that cared about them, and it makes them want to share something with them.
How do you, I guess, research on what you want to cosplay?
Well, I watch a lot of things, and then I see what speaks to me. Sometimes it's because I have something similar. As an actor, sometimes we have downtime where there's no work. Like right now, actors are on strike. Writers are on strike. There is no work for actors. All my actor friends are right now trying to scramble to find ways to make money to pay their rent. They all got August rent to pay, and they got to find ways to make money. One of the things I did during one of my downtime was I signed to work for a catering service. So I could do like catering events. And so part of that was I needed to have a black tuxedo, because they usually want you to have like black tuxedo pants, a white shirt. And if it's a very upscale event, they want you to have the tuxedo pants and a tuxedo jacket.
Right.
So I went to Goodwill around this time of the year, around June, and I happened to find a tuxedo that was my perfect size, a black tuxedo that fit me perfectly. I paid about $31 for that tuxedo. Apparently, some guy had gone to a wedding or graduated or went to a prom, bought a Jones, New York tuxedo, no longer needed it, and turned it into Goodwill. I happened to come in there, find that tuxedo, and it fit me perfectly. So I got this tuxedo now, and I started to do like cater waitering jobs. Now, which is fine. I'm making money. But then I'm like, you know what? Then one day I'm home, and the movie Blackula comes on. And I'm like, I remember from my kid, like seeing it. I'm like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's an interesting character, Blackula. It kind of struck me. Again, it's a strong, powerful black man who is a vampire. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do a Blackula cosplay for Comic-Con. I already got a black tuxedo because I was a cater waiter. So it was a very easy transition. A lot of times I'll see something and it connects to something that's already in my closet. This past weekend, or the 2 weekends ago, I went to BlerdCon in DC. And I had decided I wanted to do a Rick James cosplay. Now, in one of Rick James's albums, he's wearing a white suit, a white tie, and a black shirt. I remember I have a white suit. I bought it for some event. I was in somebody's wedding, and I needed a white suit, or some white event where I needed a white suit dressed up. So I had this white suit that's in my closet that I have not worn in years. I totally forgot about. I tried it on; it still fit me, and now that white suit can be a part of my Rick James cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I would take a look at what's in my closet and see how it can be used as a cosplay. And then kind of mix and match. Because also, you don't want to always spend millions and millions, hundreds of dollars to do cosplay. If you've got something you can use it and make that your cosplay.
I've definitely done that before.
Yeah. So I have a lot of things. A lot of times I will reuse cosplay. I did a second look with Rick James where he's wearing like the leather suit with like the red thigh-high boots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the characters I also portray is Falcon. Falcon has red boots, but Falcon's boots only come up to like just below the knee.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went out and found vinyl fabric that was close in color to these red boots. And I had a friend of mine make boot covers, which came up to my thigh. So if you look at the pictures, it looks like it's one long thigh-high boot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually my Falcon boots, which stop right below my knee, and this red boot cover, which zips up. I bought a zipper and bought the fabric, had my friend make it for me. And you put it on like I don't know, like a pair, like almost like half a pair of jeans. But nobody knows in my Rick James cosplay that those are the same boots I wear in my Falcon cosplay and my Hawkman cosplay. Because Hawkman also wears red boots. Find ways to reuse some of the things that you already own in your cosplay collection or that are in your personal closet. Especially if it's a character that you can relate to or you think other people will relate to.
What was your very first cosplay?
Before it was even called cosplay, in senior high school, they had costume day. Because it's junior senior year, they always plan different events for the seniors. So my senior high school, they said they were going to have a costume day. And I'm always been a person like, hey, you give me a rule, you give me a challenge, I'm going to step in and do it. For whatever reason that year, I don't even know why, I decided my 17-year-old self says, you know what? You want to be Uncle Sam. I don't know why. But for whatever reason, I did. And also, again, maybe because, again, Uncle Sam is like the symbol of America. But it's always a tall, skinny white guy. Now, at that point, again, I had an afro. And Uncle Sam has a lot of hair. So I said, you know what? We're going to dye your hair white. We are going to get a little mustache that you can like stick on. A little goatee to stick on to get Uncle Sam. And I thought, okay, Uncle Sam wears the red and white striped pants, like a flag. So I went to the fabric store and bought red and white striped fabric. I bought a pattern, a McCall's pattern, for a pair of Levi's jeans.
Mm-hmm.
Took it to my aunt, who's a seamstress and knows how to sew, with the pattern on my right side. I said, I need you to make me some jeans with this fabric, with the stripes going up and down like Uncle Sam. Again, I always go to welfare. I always go to like the Goodwill stores and Salvation Armies to look for pieces to go to my cosplay always. Uncle Sam wears a long blue like tuxedo jacket with tails. Now again, 17-year-old me, I can't find that. I went to check, I did not see that, but I did know that basically a tuxedo jacket that's long in the back and short in the front. I went to the coat section and found a ladies double-breasted blue trench coat.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can take this trench coat, cut the front of it to make the little V like a short part in the front of the jacket, and leave the back part like the tails and cut up the middle.
Right.
That's exactly what I did. So I was like 17 years old making this cosplay in my mind. I said, I needed a bow tie, pants, a jacket, a top hat. For the top hat, again, in Goodwill, I bought a wide brim kind of like a fedora hat for men. And I knew that I could take this, if I got a fedora hat that fit me, I could take a piece of cardboard to make the stove pipe.
The circle, the thing
exactly.
on the top. Yeah.
And cover it up. And so that's exactly what I did. Took an old piece of cardboard, made up and taped it, and then covered it in that same red and white fabric. And it covered the brim as well. So I took a piece of cardboard, because like fedora brims are not exactly round. So I took another piece of cardboard, cut out the hole that would fit on my head, slid it down over top of the fedora hat, glued it down, covered it in the fabric, added the stove top part, covered that in fabric, and I made my first cosplay at like 17. In my bedroom, on my little twin bed, in my parents' house, in my bedroom, and I wore it to school that day. And I actually won the costume contest because it was just different, and nobody expected it. And I rode the school bus like that day, and it wasn't like the yellow school bus. It's like a public city bus. Oh. So there I am at like 8:30 that morning, worried that kids may like pick on me or throw spitballs at me, while I'm on this bus. But I said, what the heck? I'm going to do it. I got dressed, walked out of my house, walked to the bus stop. And again, people were just so amazed that nobody bothered me at all. They're like, oh, that guy's dressed as Uncle Sam. And they were calling me Uncle Sam. And as I'm waiting on the bus stop for the bus to come, other cars are going by, blowing their horns and waving at me because they recognize me as Uncle Sam. And now what I do is, I've got godkids and nephews and nieces and little cousins. I take them to cosplay with me. When I go into an event, if they're around, I ask their parents, can this child come with me? And sometimes I will dress up my younger relatives or godkids. And I love getting them involved in cosplay. And I've been doing it, again, before all the Marvel movies became like popular. So these kids that are now, some of them are, in their 20s now, but they still have this great memory of the time that Uncle Bill took them to Comic-Con. So it's about sharing it, and it's about representation. It's about making people dream big, think of possibilities.
Right.
Cut down on the limits of what they can be. No, you don't just have to be a basketball player, because everybody in that basketball court is not going to become a professional basketball player. And there are lots of very talented people who are artists and creators, but nobody encourages that. So that's my message. Always just encourage your kids, encourage people. If you got a kid that likes to draw, let them draw. Don't make them go outside and play basketball if that's what they want to do that day. It's okay if they sit there and they may want to draw, or they may want to paint. They may want to write a song. They may want to write a poem. Allow that to happen too.
At this portion of the interview, we're going to get into 5 random questions.
5 what questions?
5 random questions.
Okay.
What is your dream movie role?
My dream role has always been to play twins. To play two different
parts.
Yeah, 2 different characters in the same movie.
Do you have any musical inspirations?
Music is my drug of choice. So when I want to be happy, there are songs that I play. If I am doing a scene and I need to be sad,
Mm-hmm.
there is music that I play. If I need to be like amped up or hyped up, or even when I'm at the gym, I will put on DMX and Ludacris mostly because they have really amped up music. So if I'm not feeling it, but I need to get work, I need to get a workout in. If I put on some Ludacris or some DMX or Fabulous, I will get hyped up. If I just want to be like in a mellow and a good place, if I'm say I'm like on a road trip and I'm just driving along, it's gonna be 90s R&B all day long. Where I will drive along where I'm going and just be singing right along with everybody that's playing. At that point, I'm a member of New Edition. I'm a member of In Vogue. I'm a member of Salt and Pepper. I'm a member of
Right,
Naughty by
right.
Nature, Black Sheep. I'm singing right along with all of them.
Favorite act? Well, let's say not favorite, but what actors would you like to work with?
I really would like to work. Of course, I would love to work with Viola Davis and Denzel Washington in anything possible. Um, um, I would love to be in something also with Idris Elba. I would love it if we got a chance to do something together. Um, there's another actor, African guy, Chiwetel Ejiofor. Love his work, always, always, always. What's the other guy? Lakeith Stanfield,
Mm-hmm.
because he's always a very edgy actor. Donald Glover, because their things again are outside of the box. They show you other sides of black men and not just the stereotypes. Because that's one of the things I've seen by going to so many Comic Cons. Every black man is now walking around trying to be a thug and hard all day long. You go to Comic Con, you see tons and tons of black men that are just regular dudes.
Pretty much.
Exactly. And they are nerdy dudes. They're discussing, which Naruto character is the strongest in the meanings and which one they can relate to. They're talking about anime. They're breaking down, you know, motives and agendas that they see in movies. Just having all kinds of conversations that America doesn't think that we're having, and that
Mm-hmm.
so many young black people don't believe is for us, because those are white conversations. Why are you thinking about that? Why are you looking at that?
What is, let's say, the one. What's your favorite sports team?
Growing up in Baltimore, I will always be an Orioles and a Ravens fan, no matter where I live.
Good choice, good choices. Favorite food?
Food. Again, being from Baltimore, I love seafood and I love crab cakes and crab meat. Now, but you can only get that good in that DMV area, that Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
Maryland, Virginia area. Like in New York, I can't get good crab cakes. Here in Philly this weekend, I can't get good crab cakes, good seafood. Even when I went to like up in Maine, they had lobster, but just crab, no. So basically, if there's some place where there's like a trout or a fish that's stuffed with crab meat, if that's in the menu, I'm ordering it. No, hands down. I don't need to see nothing else. You got trout or some kind of meat or something stuffed with seafood, I'm right there. If you got chicken stuffed with seafood, I'm right there. If there's a pasta dish on the menu and it's got seafood in it, whether it be crab meat, whether it be shrimp, lobster, that's what I'm getting every time. And if that's not there, and I go to like a regular diner, I really like, for whatever reason, I really like meatloaf. That's my comfort food. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes. I will get that every. Do not give me. I don't need a porterhouse steak. I don't need any. I'm not a big steak eater. If you say you want to treat me and take me to a steakhouse, I'm gonna get surf and turf, which is gonna be a lobster tail and probably a little piece of like Salisbury steak. It's gonna be cut up steak with onions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't. That's my thing. But yeah, meatloaf is definitely my comfort food.
Hey, before we got here, do you have anything you want to plug? You have anybody you want to shout out?
We've got there are a couple of cons I'm going to. There's something called Black Label Con, which is back in Philly, near the Philly airport, which is coming up August 12th. Definitely come out to Black Label Con. I would love to see people. I'm going to be there. I'm being hosting part of that. And again, and that's Black Label Con is about independent artists putting their works out. People who sat home and created their own things, who were self-published. So it's not necessarily about Marvel and DC. It's about a lot of these independent creators. Whether it be, I mean, we've had people there that are like bakers that have created their own desserts. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it's about supporting of Black businesses, independent businesses. But it's about Comic-Con. So it's got anybody with that, like the Black content creators of superheroes, of sci-fi, of anime, all that kind of. That's all going to be addressed at Black Label Con, which is August 12th
Mm-hmm.
at the Clarion Hotel out by the Philly airport. That's the next big thing I'm going to. I would love to see people there. Just stop on by.
Of course, of course. Again, thank you for coming through.
Thank you.
Under the crazy, circumstances with the technical difficulties. But I
No
really
problem.
appreciate you for coming through and doing this interview with me.
It's all good because, like I said, representation and showing up for people is what matters.
All right, that's another episode of the Fresh Blerd Air podcast. Remember, like, share, subscribe, follow.
One more thing. I am wearing the T-shirt of my boy TJ Sterling, who again is a content creator, created his own character Okamus.
Oh shoot!
You know TJ?
I think. Oh, was he at BlurCon?
Yes, he was at BlerdCon. Yes.
I did see it. I did see that shirt up there.
Yep.
That's cool. I thank you again for coming through. Like,
Thank
share,
you.
subscribe.
Yes.
Fresh Blerd Air podcast
There you
on
go.
Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. This has been Black Thanos signing out.
Ah.